So today we are going to be discussing quite possibly the funniest news story coming out of the NFL right now. Kind of unfortunate for the guy involved, but the response to it has kind of just made this entire situation hilarious. So, as you know, Calvin Ridley is now suspended until I think it's next February for gambling on Falcons games when he was away from the team during this past season. And during that time, obviously, he was gambling on Falcons games. I think he put a parlay of like 3, 5, and 8 teams. He put in $1,500 total, and he was caught because of the partnerships that the NFL had with a few of the betting partners that they have. And because of this, now he is suspended until next year, which it's got to be the worst thing possibly for Calvin Ridley professionally to happen to him, because he bet $1,500 total, and because he bet $1,500 total, he won't be able to play next season. And now because he's not able to play next season, he's going to lose over $11 million. So for Calvin Ridley's sake, this isn't a funny story. For him, this is awful. It's terrible. He knows better. He shouldn't have done it. There's obvious reasons why NFL players aren't allowed to bet on NFL games. Like, I don't think that the people that are kind of defending it, they're saying that the NFL has partners. It's like, well, at the same time, they do realize that at some point, those partners that are paying the NFL, the NFL is going to get a whole bunch of money that's going to go down the line. It's going to go to the NFL players. And here soon, the NFL salary cap's going to go up. And the players bet on themselves every single game by trying to play the best they possibly can, and thus making as much money as they possibly can. And it's obviously an integrity issue. There's absolutely, it looks really, really bad for NFL players to be betting on games, even if they're betting on their own team or not. It's bad optics and it doesn't look good. And if players start betting on the games, then fans are going to start thinking that the games are rigged, and then fans think the games are rigged, which they already do sometimes think that the NFL has some really rigged games. So that's not a good look for the NFL already. And then you add players able to bet on the games. The NFL itself might lose money from it, but if fans find out that the players are betting on games, even if it is their own games, the betting partners, even if they're not with the NFL, like FanDuel, for example, they're going to start losing a lot of money. You know, Barstool Sportsbook, like all these sports books are going to start losing a lot of money because they know that the sports that they're gambling on are in a way rigged, and they're not willing to waste and spend their money on these games to end up losing more money. There's just no reason for it. Like the fans know what's going on. Like, some fans already don't want to gamble on it because they already think it's rigged. Like, you know, I don't think it's rigged whatsoever. I think chance is just absolutely crazy sometimes. Like, you look at the Chargers-Raiders game to end the season, that was a fantastic football game. But it being rigged leads me into the funniest response that I think we have gotten through this entire situation, and that has to go to Emmanuel Acho. So his tweet reads, and I'll have it up on the screen. It says, "I don't think Calvin Ridley was throwing games while on the field, but this video is very damning." And at the same time, I will put the video on screen of Calvin Ridley and the plays that Emmanuel Acho tweeted out, thinking that these plays are pretty damning. But just looking at this video, if it's still on screen, I don't remember how long it was. I think it was like 30 seconds. But Emmanuel Acho has got to go out as the guy that's getting ratioed the most right now on Twitter. Like, it's not, you know, astronomical. He has more likes, but like the amount of backlash that this is getting, and it's just hilarious. Like, the video is just Calvin Ridley making moves that are unconventional for wide receivers to make. Like, let's be real, it's unconventional. Like, some of these receivers aren't doing it, but at the same time, you look at the plays that Calvin Ridley's making. As a Chiefs fan, I see that on a weekly basis with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill makes those plays on a weekly basis where he's running backwards and making plays that would look kind of silly if you think about it. Like, running backwards and just trying to avoid tackles the way they're doing it. Like, one of these plays, he was trying to, you know, he should have easily outrun Daniel Sorensen. He thought he was trying to make a play, and it just didn't work out in his favor. So I think the tweet as a whole is just a very, very bad tweet, and I might just leave it up here on loop. Which, if at the end of the day, Calvin Ridley made a huge mistake. I really do not think there's a way of defending Calvin Ridley what he did. Now, the thing that I would be outraged the most of is the length of the suspension. Yes, I believe integrity to the game needs to be there, but I don't even think the NFL holds themselves to the highest standards, because you look at the issues that are brought up, you know, all these very major issues that I don't really want to get into that are very bad, like situations that would end up a lot of people in jail. The NFL seems to brush by and only suspend guys for 2 games, 4 games, make them lose a game check here. It just feels like it's a slap on the wrist. And for Calvin Ridley to get suspended that long, I kind of agree with the punishment because that's a huge integrity issue. But I also believe that the punishments of these players that are committing outrageous crimes and very bad things that they're doing, they also need to be suspended definitely longer. Like if you're going to suspend a guy for gambling on your own games, the other guys need to be suspended longer. Like I said, I fully understand the whole gambling and how much the NFL wants to keep the integrity of the game. Like that, I completely understand that. But at the same time, they've also have to hold themselves to a higher standard. So yes, I really hate it for Calvin Ridley because he lost himself a lot of money. But at the same time, if you look at his tweets, it literally just looks like a sad gambler. It really, really does. And that's why it's an unfortunate situation. It's literally a situation where you try not to laugh the entire time because it's unfortunate for Calvin Ridley in his career. I think he'll get reinstated. I think it was a true mistake, but just the response to it and Calvin Ridley's response to it too, it's just hilarious. It looks like a sad gambler. And it's very unfortunate. I hope he gets reinstated in a year or so whenever he's allowed to be back. I'm sure he will. He'll be reinstated, I'm sure, within the first couple of minutes that he's able to be reinstated. But the response to this whole situation was hilarious. But the NFL is going to make an example out of Calvin Ridley. This will obviously prove that the NFL, at least the on the field play aspect of it, they want the integrity to be at the highest. So they kind of set a standard, and they showed an example of Calvin Ridley of how the NFL wants to conduct their business.